Good evening and welcome to a brand new series of Sportscast. Now, over the coming months, our outside broadcast unit will be in many parts of the province, covering a wide variety of sporting actions, so there's a lot to come. Our first venue, though, is the showgrounds in Ballymena, and we really do race into our new season with the speed, thrills and spills of hot rod racing. As we bring you the first ever Team International, yes, Northern Ireland against England, sponsored by John Player. So not surprisingly, we've got the cream of British drivers. Let's meet the teams. For Northern Ireland, their captain in the Chevette number 932 is Davy Evans from Templepatrick, world champion of 1982. He's joined by 1981 world champion Ormond Christie from Crumlin, and Ormond, as always, in the Toyota number 962. From Coke comes Leslie Dallas in his Escort, car number 915. Next, it's Norman Woolsey from Portadown in another Toyota, number 950. From Randalstown is John Murray in a Colt number 970, a late replacement, by the way, for Mervyn McReynolds, who had car problems. In the Escort number 979 is Richard Turtle from Cullybackey. In the Escort number 903 is Robin Sloan of Kells, and completing the lineup in another Escort number 960, it's Lisburn's Adrian Christie, brother of Ormond. Meanwhile, England are led by the man in Escort number 351, the legendary Barry Lee, who's been 4 times world champion. The English team are all in Escorts, and driving 306 is 1976 world champion George Pawley. World champion of 1980 is Mick Collard in car number 19. Number 242 is 1982 European champion Pete Stevens. Next, it's Peter Grimer, the current English champion in Escort number 88. A brother of Peter's is Paul Grimer, driving car number 8. Then it's Andy Dance behind the wheel of car number 95. And last but certainly not least, there's Stuart Jackson, number 156. That then is the lineup. Well, drivers don't come much better or much faster than our team captains, Davy Evans for Northern Ireland, and from England, Barry Lee. I spoke to them earlier. Barry, it's a delight to welcome you back to Northern Ireland.
It's a pleasure to be back, and I really mean that.
And you've brought a strong side.
Yes, I've brought a very strong side with me, and I think we stand a good chance. But let's be honest, when Northern Ireland first started in hot rodding, I always said they were going to come good, but they've come very, very good. In the last 3 years, you've got some terrific drivers, and it's a great shame. I hope you get 3 through for the World Final. There's 2 definitely, but you deserve 3.
What about this quote I was reading where you said Northern Ireland would win? I don't believe that.
I think we've got a problem, quite frankly. I was hoping tactically when we chose our grid positions. I won the toss last night and we lost the quiz show, and that's not a very good omen because I won the toss this morning. So we've chose logically the pole position to start. I was hoping Davey was going to go either on the front or on the back, and he's gone on the back, and he's put Ormond, one of his other faster men, on the front. And so I'm going in the middle and hope to either do some work from the middle. It's raining, but who knows? It's wet for everybody. So.
A tactical cat and mouse. Well, David, let me come to you. Your thoughts first on the English side?
Well, they have a very strong team. They have the strongest team from England. The 8 fastest drivers, they have the pick out of 200. We have the 8 fastest drivers out of 14. But I still think we'll have a chance. You know, the English drivers always put up a good show here. This is the first time Barry Lee has been back in 4 years. I'm really pleased to see him. I think the crowd is really pleased to see him. And I can't see anything going wrong. But who knows? The rain's on now. And
yeah, what about the rain? How much problem will that be?
Well, I think but whenever it's dry, we have a choice of tyres. We've got a hard compound tyre, we have a soft compound tyre. But whenever it's wet, we've just the one tyre, and that's it. Everybody's on the same.
What about these tactics? Barry Lee starting near the back. You're starting at the back.
Well, we started yesterday. I spoke to Barry yesterday, and we started. It was a cat and mouse game. He was waiting to me sort out my team, and I was waiting him sorting out his team. But I saw his team. I think he's changed a little bit since, but I'm very happy where I am. The team. Ormond's at the front for the first grid, I'm at the back for the second. Leslie Dallas is at the back along with me, and Ormond was at the front along with Ormond, and I think we can pick up a few points with the fast men at the front in both heats.
Right, well, let's see how it goes. David, Barry, thank you very much indeed. Now, well known to hot rod fans as ITV's commentator of the big one, the World Championship final at Ipswich, is Nigel King, and I'm delighted to say Nigel is our man describing the action over the next 2 weeks. Nigel, first ever Team International, it really is a world-class field.
It certainly is. We've got a couple of world champions on the Irish side, we've got 3 former world champions on the English side, top drivers coming over from England. It should be a good scrap.
But apart from the big names, the Lees, the Evans, the Christies, it's all about a team race, isn't it, with overall points counting?
Well, very much. The positions on that final all-important grid are going to be determined by the points gained, and it's no use one or two of the star drivers thinking that a few points from them will suffice. The backmarkers have got to do their work as well.
Right, first time for you here at the Ballymena Raceway. Impressions?
I think it's fantastic. I wish we'd got tracks like this at home. I'm really very impressed. It's a beautiful layout, a lovely racing surface, a very good safety fence, ideal conditions for really good competitive racing, I think.
What about the rain, though?
Well, the drivers would rather have it rain before they start, so they know what they've got to do as far as the tyres are concerned. The worst thing is they get it all set up for one, and then it rains and there's a frantic rush to change, or you get halfway through a race and then you're in trouble. So I don't think the rain will make too much difference, provided we know whether it's going to be raining or dry before we get started any particular race.
Finally, must put you on the spot. Prediction?
Well, I'd rather give you a prediction on the overall outcome at the end of the two heats, because a lot of the Irish drivers, of course, have not driven very much in England. I haven't seen much of them. The two guys I have seen a great deal of course, Ormond Christie and Davy Evans, really surprised everybody over the water with their fantastic performance, and they have to be taken very, very seriously. And I think with the home advantage, then the Irish lads definitely have got it slightly tipped their way. But let's wait and see how we go after the two heats. Then I'll give you a prediction for the final.
All right, thanks a lot, Nigel.
Okay.
Right then, time for the action, which, by the way, also includes clips of super rods, stock cars, production, and we've got a banger spectacular as well. But time now for the main event, Heat 1 of our Hot Rod International, Northern Ireland against England. We've got a marvellous crowd here, the atmosphere really building up, so too is the rain, unfortunately. But time now to join our commentator, Nigel King.
Well, with a field of this calibre, it's always very difficult to make a choice who to try and pick out at the start of a race. But I suppose we ought to take a look at the two drivers that the team captains have designated to occupy the real hot spot right on the front of the grid. Front row inside for England, car number 19, Mick Duffy Collard, a pig farmer from Surrey, just south of London. One of the real characters of hot rod racing. He's won most of the top awards in the sport, including the World Championship in 1980. A little erratic temperament, shall we say, and has had spent one or two periods off the track for that. Alongside him, one of Northern Ireland's top men, 962, Ormond Christie. And he really has got the experience, of course, to take the responsibility of this front grid. World champion in 1981, very fast in that Toyota, and certainly a very good choice by team captain of Davy Evans to occupy the front row. Well, the warming up lap is complete, the checkered flag is down, and we're on our way with 30 laps of the first heat of the John Player Special Hot Rod International. Now let's see how the tactics are going to work out in these early stages. 962, Ormond Christie the leader, and Mick Collard rather surprisingly falling back in the early stages. It is in fact a borrowed car that Mick Collard is in, and maybe he's got some problems there. But it's car number 8 moving up now into second place, Paul Grimer. They come thundering through in front of me. The noise is absolutely deafening, but well away from the noise, and of course the spray from the still damp track in the front, is Ormond Christie. Got himself 20 yards now from Paul Grimer for England in number 8. So it's Northern Ireland leading and England in second place in these first couple of laps. Now there's Ormond Christie, and we'll see in a moment the gap between the two cars. Ormond Christie there, he's got about 20 yards as they come to this bend. Paul Grimer's not far behind, in fact closing the gap down there to what you can see, 15 yards or so. He's not letting him get away, and he certainly can't afford to let him get away at this stage of the race, because Ormond is not an easy man to pass, and once he gets away, he won't be an easy man to catch. So those are the two leaders. A little further back, it's car number 88, also for England, the brother of Paul Grimer, Peter Grimer, occupying the third spot at the moment. So this man, 962, Ormond Christie for Northern Ireland, in the lead in the Toyota. In his Ford, Paul Grimer, number 8. Behind him for England, number 88, Peter Grimer. They're the 1, 2, 3, although that leading pair have now opened out quite a little gap ahead of the rest of the field. Round the top bend they come, into the home straight. 962, Ormond Christie for Ireland. Number 9, Paul Grimer for England. 88, Peter Grimer for England. Then in the next place, it's 950, Norman Woolsey. And then behind him, we go back to another of the Northern Ireland drivers, and then we've got England, and Northern Ireland. That's the way they go. We've got 6 laps gone in this 30-lapper, and it's still these two out in front. 9.62, Ormond Christie looking comfortable. Paul Grimer, experienced driver, spends a lot of time racing in the Midlands on the very fast banked Pensford Raceway up near Birmingham. So he certainly won't mind the rather fast conditions here at Ballymena. Past one of the back markers, the English back markers, 95, Andrew Dance, goes Ormond Christie. And there's one of the English big hopes, well and truly out of the race, looking rather disconsolate, leaning on the safety fence. 3:06, former world champion George Polly, obviously with big problems, but still back at the front of the race. It's these two that are dominating it. 9.62, Ormond Christie, and number 8, Paul Grimer. Way back, we've got Norman Woolsey in car number 950, the Portadown driver who's trying to get on terms with the others. He's back in 4th place, about 40 yards behind. But there's the 1, 2, 3 in the picture now. 9.62 Ormond Christie for Ireland, and the brothers Grimer in 2nd and 3rd place. Number 8 Paul and number 88 Peter. And this is the man they're all trying to catch, and that's the distance between them. Round that top bend they come once again, taking a nice line through it. They've all obviously got the hang of this track, although Ormond must have an advantage racing here so regularly. Ormond Christie, one of the few drivers in the sport to drive the Toyota. There's another of the Northern Ireland drivers trying to get on terms. 3.79, Richard Turtle, local driver from Ballymena. The leader overtaking the 970 car of John Murray, one of the back markers, and now a long way behind and with very little chance of getting in. But of course the points go all the way down to 16, although there's only 1 point for 16th place as opposed to the 16 all-important points that this man is now looking set to pick up. As we come towards the halfway stage, 13 laps gone now, and it's still Northern Ireland that are dominating the race at the front, with the 2 Englishmen in hot pursuit and not letting him get away. Paul Grimer and Peter Grimer, there they are side by side in 2nd and 3rd, still chasing Ormond Christie. And those three a long way clear of 9.50, Norman Woolsey from Portadown, who is next. And Peter Grimer looking a little frustrated with his brother back there, trying to get past. And another casualty there, the 9.15 car of Leslie Darras from Cook, who's there now well and truly out of the race. So we seem to have got a couple of casualties, one indeed on each side now. George Polly for England and Leslie Dallas for Northern Ireland are now out. Just over halfway, 16 laps gone. Still Ormond Christie in 9.62 leading. Still the brothers Grimer chasing. Well, the top English drivers there, 242, Pete Stevens finding himself lapped, and that's a very unusual thing for Pete Stevens. He, of course, many local supporters will know that he won the European Championship at Ballymena, and he won the English Championship last year and the National Championship at Hensford, and he's certainly a stranger to being lapped by the leaders. But that's Pete Stevens, and he's a long way well and truly out of it. Another of the Englishmen who's some way back is 351 Barry Lee. That's the 903 car of Northern Ireland. Robin Sloan from Kells being passed, and in fact there's Mick Collard, who started on pole position alongside Ormond Christie, now being lapped by him. And again, Mick maybe will be putting that down to the fact that it is a borrowed car. His number 1 car is ready for a World Championship qualifier in England tomorrow. So that's the leading group. Ormond Christie 9.62 in the lead. Number 8 Paul Grimer 2nd, and 88 Peter Grimer 3rd. And they've still got themselves a fairly long gap ahead of 9.50 Norman Woolsey. And then we go back to 9.60 Adrian Christie, and behind him it's 1.56 Stu Jackson, but they're all a long, long way behind. Another Irishman there, Richard Turtle, looking set to be lapped. 21 laps gone. 9 more to go. That's Stu Jackson in 1.56, a former European champion, easing his way by on the inside, past the 9.60 Northern Ireland car of Adrian Christie. But that's the man who's up front, still going well. The rain now beginning to come down, making the conditions even more slippery. The track was wet and it wasn't actually raining when we started, and the conditions now beginning to change, and that is certainly slowing them a little. There's Barry Lee, one of the big English hopes, who is now all set to be lapped by the Irishman, who's the current leader. 23 laps gone, the time now ticking away. Through come the slower back marker cars. They've got a lot to do because the leading group are well separated, headed by the man in the middle there in the Toyota, 962 Ormond Christie. Still, the second and third places are the same. The two Greimer brothers from Sleaford in Lincolnshire are in second and third places, and in fact, as they come into that bend, a dash through the puddle from number 88, Peter Greimer, nearly put him through into the lead, and he's obviously sitting there now. He's got something in reserve, and he wants to get through and try and scoop those maximum points, and now 962 is getting boxed up, and with 5 more laps to go, Barry Lee there, in fact, moves out wide and nearly takes Peter Greimer to the fence. Peter Greimer was obviously hoping that Ormond was going to get boxed just like that behind Barry Lee, and there was the chance. Ormond boxed in, and Peter Greimer takes up the lead. 88, Peter Greimer for England is now the leader. 962, Ormond Christie is in second place, and Paul Greimer is third. So it's now England, Northern Ireland, England in the first 3 places. It's still 950 in fourth place for Northern Ireland, Norman Wolseley, but he's a long way back. And the struggle at the moment is between Barry Lee and backmarker. Obviously some team racing here. He's not going to give any help to Ormond Christie, and trying to hold him back from catching up with this man who is now the leader. The laps are ticking away. That was 3 more laps to go. 88, Peter Greimer sweeping round the 979 car of Richard Turtle, a long way behind, looking confident, puts his foot down. He went well in the wet at Wisbech on May the 15th to win the English Championship, and he's starting off very well indeed here for England in these wet and very slippery conditions at Ballymena. Round the outside of teammate backmarker number 95, Andy Dance he goes. The laps are ticking away, and this is the man who looks to take the top points. The checkered flag is now at the ready as we come into the final stages of this one. He comes off the final turn now, coming through to take the flag, and there it is. 88, Peter Greimer is the winner for England. In second place is 962, Ormond Christie for Northern Ireland. Third is 8th place, Paul Greimer for England. There's no doubt that the winner, it's this man, 88, Peter Greimer for England.
Well, time now for Heat 2 of our Hot Rod International, Northern Ireland against England. In Heat 1, Peter Greimer of England won that, but the overall point tally sees Northern Ireland leading by 69 points to 64. Ormond Christie second in that first race, but just pipped at the post.
Yes, I was pipped at the post as well. Got blocked in by a certain, I think we called the chap Barry Lee. Deliberately, of course, but maybe we can make amends for that later on.
Technically, he might say. Anyhow, Northern Ireland took 4 of the first 6 places. That must be pleasing.
Yes, that was what we wanted. We just have to try and get it right in the second heat now, and of course in the final.
And the lineup this time, you're near the back.
Yes, I'm at the back actually, right at the very back.
So what about the weather?
Well, it's a bit mucky at the moment, but hopefully it'll dry up and that'll maybe make for better racing even.
Right, well, let me come to George Pulley. And George, I think you're lucky to be with us this time.
Yes, I thought I was going over the top of the fence, actually. The throttle jammed wide open, and I didn't have a lot of chance of stopping, what were the wet conditions.
Right, but you've got the car back. 5 points behind. It's not too much.
No, I think we'll make that up. We'll have a go. You know, I haven't done much for the team yet, but I'm hoping to put in a good effort in the next one.
Right, well, let's see what happens. Gentlemen, thanks a lot.
They're just waiting for that green flag to go down, which it does, and send them on the way, and it's Davy Evans very fast away and taking the ground in front of Andrew Dance as they go into the first bend. 9.32, 1982 world champion Davy Evans roaring into the lead on this track of Ballymena that he knows so well. And look at that gap already beginning to appear. And it's Leslie Dallas, another Northern Irish driver, who goes into second place. 9.32, Davy Evans is the leader. Driving from the Irishman, playing a captain's role. 9.15, Leslie Dallas going to join him now on the inside. 3.51, Barry Lee is in third place. There they are, that's the 1, 2, 3. With just a couple of laps gone, that very smart car, 9.15 of Leslie Dallas from Cook. He's the guy in second place. .9.32. 241 is there, then 242. That's the leading group at the moment, but it's Northern Ireland. Leslie Dallas, 915. He's the leader. Davy Evans is second, just behind him in 932. Then 351 for England, Barry Lee. 242, Pete Stevens for England. Then it comes to 960, Adrian Christie, the Lisbon driver. The brother of former world champion Ormond Christie. And then it's 156 Stu Jackson for England, 679 Richard Turtle, the Ballymena driver, and then 306 George Polly, who's back into this event after damage in the earlier heat. And this is the man they have all got to catch. A long way to go, 30 laps for this one. Still the two Irishmen. 915 and 932, then 351 Barry Lee. Now that's the leader, and the lead he's got is about 20 yards. There's the other two in second place, just coming into the picture. Number 8 on the outside is a back marker. There's Barry Lee in 351, moving through on the inside of some of the other cars. And with Northern Ireland occupying quite a few of these leading positions in this heat, the English drivers are really going to have to go some to make sure they can get a respectable points tally to take them into the final with some good chance. That's one of the back marker cars, 242, Pete Stevens, and as I look at the lap sheet, he's quite a long way back. Another casualty is 19, Mick Collard for England. Back at the front, still 915, 351, those two battling it out. Two laps gone, 8 more to go. And now we may begin to see a little bit of team racing coming in here as the leaders come up behind the slower 962 Ormond Christie car for Northern Ireland. Now the tactics here will possibly be that he'll let the Irishman through, and then of course he'll sit in the way of Barry Lee. Into the final couple of laps we go now. It'll be one more lap to go this time. Into their final lap now, and Leslie Dallas really showing them the way round. The 32-year-old driver from Coke in the lead and driving superbly to pick up 16 points for Northern Ireland and take them into the final in a strong position. Coming off the final turn now, there's the checkered flag. Leslie Dallas is the winner. 351. Barry Lee is second for England, and in third place, it's another Northern Ireland driver, 932, Davy Evans. Davy Evans in car number 932, 1982 world champion. He's on the inside. Alongside him, 351 Barry Lee, 4 times world champion alongside him. As they come off the bend now, and the green flag goes down, and this is it. There's 60 laps to come to determine this John Player International. Now, is it going to be England, as it's been in the heats? I beg your pardon, is it going to be Ireland, as it's been in the heats? Or is it going to be England that can fight back? Well, if the start's anything to go by, that's pretty even, because it's Davy Evans only just ahead of Barry Lee. Look at the speed of that Davy Evans car as he accelerates away from Barry Lee. One of the few drivers to use a Chevette. Barry Lee, of course, in his total Ford. The rest of them further back. The English drivers know they've really got to go some in this, because in the first 8 places on the grid there are in fact 5 Irishmen. 932, Davy Evans the leader. His compatriot Ormond Christie is right behind him. So that's the leader, and as we come a little wider, you can see exactly the margin between them. Oh, a little bit of team racing here now, side by side for the Irishman. Ormond decides to take it up. 962, Ormond Christie the leader. 932, Davy Evans is with him. 351, Barry Lee is tucked in behind. Further back, we've got 95, Andy Dance. 88 is Peter Grimer, but this is the leading group. Ormond Christie in 962, absolutely reveling in the wet here. There's Ormond. Going well, looking confident. Barry Lee now upsides of the Davy Evans car, moving in back into second place, but certainly momentarily anyway. shows you the margin now. Ormond Christie on the right in 9.62, pulling away from Barry Lee in 3.51, and Davy Evans in third place, trying to stay indeed with Barry Lee. And as we look at that little back group there, we'll see that the other placemen are not that far behind. Ormond Christie is now clear in the front in this one, 9.62. And behind him, it's still Barry Lee in 3.51. There's Barry. A little bit of margin now between him and the one in front and the one behind. Things beginning to open up a little. .962, Ormond Christie. 3.51, Barry Lee. 9.32, Davy Evans is third. 1.56. Stu Jackson comes next, then 2.42 Pete Stevens, then 9.15 Leslie Dallas, then 3.06 George Polly, number 8 Paul Grimer, 9.79 Richard Turtle. That's the full order now of about the first 7 places. But at the moment, it's Ormond Christie for Ireland who leads, Barry Lee for England. There's Ormond Christie, the leader, and as I said, the gap indeed is now beginning to widen. This man is the leader. And we can see in a moment the gap is now coming. There's 3.51 Barry Lee coming through in second place. That's the leader. There's Barry Lee now as they come through. There's the third, and then the fourth, fifth. On the inside of those two, or the second of those two, is the next place. So that's the sort of gap now we've got. The field a little spread out. The front 2 places some way clear of the rest, but the field is beginning to close up on the rest of them. So that's 9.62. Still behind him is 3.51 Barry Lee. Barry Lee, of course, a former European Rallycross champion before he came to hot rod racing. This is the man who's in third place currently, Norman Woolsey. Car number 950, and he's not too far behind Barry Lee, in fact, now. And as they come through, we can see that, in fact, the next placeman are only a relatively few yards behind them now. It seems as if the rest of the field is beginning to close in on the leaders as a whole. That's the man they're all chasing. That's the man they've all got to beat. Of course, this race is to be decided on points, on this race alone. So we shall have to do some calculations after they've gone over the line to see who's actually won this international match. But the 16 points from the first man over the line will certainly be a great advantage to the Northern Ireland team. George Polly now has moved up, indeed, into 4th place. George Polly going much better after that mishap in the very first heat, but he's still got a long way to go to catch Ormond Christie. As we look at the lap sheets, we're now just coming onto the halfway stage. Still looking cool and calm and confident. And the rest of them still sweating to decide whether they can catch him or not. Norman now picking his way through some of the slower back markers, hoping that none of them are going to do anything silly just in front of him. Coming past Richard Turtle in 9.79. Local lad driving on his home track. That doesn't stop the former world champion from sweeping past him. So there he is. .962. Past Andrew Dance, one of the English drivers. A bit of a scrap now as George Polly comes into contention for second place. 960 there is Adrian Christie, a back marker from the Irish team. But the other 2 cars are well and truly in this. 351 on the outside there. On the right is Barry Lee, is second. And 306, his English teammate, is in the next position. So things are beginning to warm up for the places. 351 Barry Lee under real pressure now from 306 George Polly, and it looks as if George here has got the inside berth and looking set to move up into second place. Maybe he can catch Ormond where Barry couldn't. Indeed, he swept past very confidently. And in a moment or two, Ormond Christie will be looking in his mirror and wondering suddenly where George Polly has come from. George, in fact, look, opening the gap on Barry Lee. So maybe there's going to be a scrap for the lead after all. Certainly it was beginning to look as if the Irishman was going to run away with it, although, let's face it, there is still a long way to go. 35 laps have gone. That's the man they're chasing. And he's got a lead now about a third of a lap on this Ballymena Raceway. Christie. Still there, still going well, still confident. 3:06. George Polly trying hard to catch him, and little by little he's definitely whittling down the difference between them. Now, is the 9:03 car there, or Robin Sloane going to hold him up? Perhaps Robin Sloane doesn't appreciate the significance of the fact that George is chasing hard behind Ormond Christie. He needs to get past quickly. He can't afford to wait too many laps to pass these slower back marker cars. George, your driver, that's never worried about having a go on the outside, just hoping, of course, the man on the inside doesn't drift wide and take him to the fence. Ormond Christie coming past the back marker number 8 car of Paul Grimer. Still the Irishman with a very comfortable lead, but I think that the two Englishmen, 3:06 George Polly and 3:51 Barry Lee, are definitely closing the gap little by little. The question will be, will there be enough time? Just coming to 40 laps gone now, 20 more to go. Well, a lot can happen in 20 laps. But are they going to be good enough to catch Ormond Christie? Well, it certainly won't be for lack of trying on the part of George Polly. George Polly, a driver who's tried quite a lot of forms of motorsport. Started off in stock cars, progressed through to the hot rods, and of course won the World Championship at Ipswich in 1976. Barry Lee there, world champion in 1973, 1974, 1977 and 1978, won most of the other honours in the sport, so he certainly knows what he's doing. Now, whether the combined skill and experience of those two drivers are going to be enough to overcome Ormond Christie remains to be seen, because Ormond is not lacking in experience. He started racing in 1971 in stock cars and moved on to hot rods in 1977. And certainly it was a surprise to many people in the world of hot rod racing when in fact he won that world title just a couple of years ago. And I can see in fact the 950 car that was going so well in third place for a long time, Norman Woolsey, is now out against the fence, and that's the end of the race for him. So it's still 962 Ormond Christie, and there he is. That's the end of the race for Norman Woolsey, I'm afraid. A man who's been racing for a long time, and his race is now over for today. Back now to the scrap. These are some of the placemen. That's the leader. And now the lead that Ormond Christie has got is down to about a quarter of a lap, but that is still a lot for this man to get rid of. George Polly slowly going past the back markers, picking them off patiently. 351 Barry Lee on the right of the picture here in the next place. Procession there, a little bit of touching there, which is not really legal, a non-contact formula hot rod racing. When they get congested like that, everyone is eager to look for a gap, a chance to go by, because the chances are few and far between. Ormond Christie hasn't got that trouble. He's got a fairly clear run at the moment. He's fairly well in the lead. Barry Lee patiently working away, still there in third place. So as we look at the lap sheets, coming now towards 50 laps, time is running out for the English team. Two more back markers disposed of by Barry Lee. There's the leader now. He's got a group of back markers. And George Polly maybe got a chance here to close up, but no, Ormond Christie quickly gets past the slower cars. That's the one thing, of course, that can really whittle down the lead very quickly. You spend a couple of laps stuck behind a batch of slow-moving back marker cars, and a quarter of a lap lead can be down to nothing before you know where you are. Barry Lee getting past 932 Davy Evans, trying very hard further back, while Ormond Christie weaves his way through the slower cars. And at the moment he's not being too badly held up. But Barry Lee is gaining, but I don't think he's gaining enough to make it conclusive. 51 laps have gone. Richard Turtle being lapped once again in 979. Ormond finding his way past those slower cars very well. His experience on the Ballymena Raceway obviously standing him in good stead. Knows his way around. He's not afraid to go on the outside. A beautiful racing surface here, very consistent, no enormous bumps to suddenly throw you off course. Barry Lee having a real tussle here with Davy Evans. 1982 world champion and 4 times former world champion there, side by side. But still, the question really is, can Ormond Christie in 9.62 hold on to this very comfortable lead that he has accumulated? And can 306 George Colley catch him? And as each lap goes by, the answer to that, the question must become more and more, no, he can't be caught. I think barring him getting into some real trouble, barring the engine blowing, he just isn't going to be caught now. There's 5 more laps to go. And George Colley must be now despairing of making that distance between him and the leader any less. Quiet man by nature, cool, calm and confident, knowing that he's got that lead. Still a little over a quarter of a lap. As he comes off the bend, he can look out of the window of his car and look across to the start of the bend and see the only opposition to him is some way back. And knowing that the laps are running out, he can be confident that all he's got to do now is to keep going to pick up that first place for the Irish team. Barry Lee back in now about 4th place, just behind 9.32. In fact, the order is 9.62 Ormond Christie, 3.06 George Colley, 9.32 Davy Evans, 3.51 Barry Lee, and 1.56 Stu Jackson. Those are the first places. Checkered flag at the ready now as they come through. It's going to be a win for Ireland anyway. Ormond Christie is going to take it. Round he comes. Not far away now. That's it. There's the flag. So that's the first few points in the bag. 3.06 George Colley goes over the line second. And as the rest of the placemen are going to come funneling through, it's going to be 9.32 Davy Evans. It's going to be 3.51 Barry Lee is next. And in a moment or two, we'll get the rest of the placings, work out the points and see who has won. But nothing can detract from the great win in the actual race itself for Northern Ireland by 9.62, former world champion Ormond Christie.
Difficult conditions at Ballymena. It was confirmed eventually that although the Irishman was first across the line, England won the team event by 68 points to 65.
So Barry Lee, victory for England, but it was oh so close.
So close, 3 points, let's be honest. And I think if the weather hadn't come down as bad as it had, we made the right tyre choice, and thank God, you know, we got it by just 3 points, but it was very close.
Right, a nice boost for the Englishman looking ahead to the World Championships.
I'm not going to say anything about it. Yes, a nice boost for the Englishman, but let's be honest, those Irishmen are going very, very quickly. They've had it 2 years running, and come see, come saw.